Disclaimer. The following video contains a mix of ridiculous truths and blatant lies, mixed for the sake of satire and storytelling. You have been warned. Jeremy McCrouchjumpspam, also known as the Scout, is an enigma, a criminal, and the subject of multiple very interesting adventures. Starting on the day of his actual birth, he was born to an American woman living in Boston who had been seduced by famous YouTuber Stabby Stabby. As a young child, he liked to parade around the house, pretending to be a gangster from the local mafia wing, the Boston Bashers. Though he never joined this group in earnest, he did assist a few of their members on occasion, and later on named one of his favorite bats after the group that inspired him to take up mercenary work to begin with. His student years were notably uneventful, except when he decided to try out for the track team. He was a remarkable runner from a young age, and would have been the best on the team had he stayed, but he decided to quit the team a mere week in when he noticed no girls were showing up. It should be noted that his mother, in her infinite wisdom, had neglected to tell Scout that he went to an all-boys school, though Scout never quite noticed because he slept through all of his classes. As would be expected, he eventually dropped out of high school, opting instead to take up odd jobs to pass the time while still living with his mother. He was a newspaper boy for a bit before he got fired for spending too much time criticizing his customers for actually reading the newspapers he delivered, then eventually settled into a fairly stable job as a milk delivery boy for the Bostonian suburbs. He spent half a decade in this position while making his life interesting by pursuing random ideas that came to him in the shower. For example, one time he ended up on an FBI watch list by trying to seduce underage girls at his old high school by pretending to be a student once more. He was eventually caught, kicked out, and reported, but when an investigation into the incident was launched, he managed to convince the judge that, quote, "I was only trolling." His life only truly began to take a turn towards what we know him as today at some point during the mid-1960s. While on an otherwise normal delivery session, he was passing by one of the not-so-respectable sides of town when he heard the Wilhelm scream followed by a gunshot pierce through the silence. Letting his curiosity get the better of him, he kicked down the door of the house it came from, only to find Miss Pauling standing over a corpse, four-barreled pistol in hand. Everyone's favorite bureaucrat was about to turn the gun on Scout just to tie up the loose end, but in a horribly motivated decision, he offered to help Miss Pauling hide the body. After dumping it in a nearby children's jungle gym together, Pauling offered Scout a job in contractual mercenary work, to which Scout eagerly accepted simply as an excuse to spend more time with Miss Pauling, who he had already fallen for completely after a single criminally minded afternoon. From that point up until the events of Team Fortress 2 proper, he would carry on with a mix of occasional local dirty work for Pauling while still running a steady milk route, only quitting that job once he received a more permanent offer from Red and Blue, two subsidiary companies of the overarching TF Industries. In the game, it is worth noting that the special delivery loadout is in reference to his outfit that day, which comprised of his milkman's hat, the last remaining jar of milk, which has since then expired and turned into a chemical not even scientists can explain, the gun Miss Pauling used before gifting it to him, and a fish wrapped in a newspaper. Throughout all of TF2's lore, there is yet to be a proper explanation as to why exactly he had a fish, so if you could let me know where the heck that's from, that'd be great. For the sake of keeping this video a reasonable length, I'm going to be skipping over the still-in-progress events of the TF2 comics that explain the present within the TF2 universe, though it is worth noting that Scout breaks the fourth wall on occasion. Here's a few examples.
That is how a team of best friends wins a game. I love this game! Man, I saw those guys in the way in. This does not seem competitive. I spec'd these guys earlier. They were all over the place. Frankly, I'm not impressed. Are you guys ready to scrim? I'm ready to scrim. This is just a scrim, right?
One more thing while we're still in the timeline, I think we can all agree that in his old age, Scout absolutely worked a brief stint at a Chick-fil-A, during which he finally learned that most valuable skill of moderation, when he, a former milkman, was forced to reconcile an environment completely in favor of his favorite chicken, but highly racist against the very cows that used to serve him. Speaking of racism, let's dig into his personality. First of all, Scout TF2 is a belligerent racist. Need proof? Go Q for Casual and talk to literally anyone playing Scout, and you'll see what I mean. Hey, Luna TF2, professional scout man from Team Fortress 2. What do you think of the Cleveland show? Second of all, Scout has a one-on-one relationship with God. One time in the comics, he died, went straight to heaven, and God sent him back because all the women on Earth hadn't had sex with him, which was apparently Scout's very purpose for living. Despite all this, he isn't in any way religious, as to him, God's just sort of a friend he chills with every now and then. He also has a rivalry with his half-brother Suction Cup Man, but that's a story for another time. It is worth noting God mentioned Scout isn't his son, but he wishes he was, displaying that the sort of canonical true faith of the TF2 universe is a sort of comedic Christianity, as that's the best way I can describe it. Oh, and it's also worth noting that while he rarely gets political, he is a Trump supporter, but only because he saw a bunch of people wearing red hats and someone gave him a red hat, which made him feel cool. So, how does all this translate into the game itself? Well, there's the more obvious references, like the Boston Basher referencing the local mafia branch and the special delivery loadout referencing his previous career, but there's a few other more obscure ones. For example, the Winger, while commonly thought to be referencing chicken wings, actually references the casual, I'll wing it attitude with which he approaches a majority of his life. Then there's the Babyface's Blaster, which I would like to tell you about, but I don't think YouTube would like it if I talked about what happened in the orphanage that day, so I'll just leave it to your imagination. The Sun on a Stick was actually a gift from God himself to make up for the fact that Scout wasn't actually his son, though it unfortunately does absolutely nothing, which frankly seems about right for the TF2 universe's God. The Shortstop, the gun given to him by Miss Pauling on the day they met, didn't actually get its name until a bit later when Scout himself was given that nickname by the woman we know only as Chicken Tramp, following the day we can only assume Scout lost his virginity. No, Scout hasn't realized exactly what shortstop means in this context, and let's hope it stays that way. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bonk Atomic Punch. The radioactive power drink that gives Scout the energy to dodge bullets is actually made exclusively for him, as he alone has a thin layer of lead around his entire digestive system that allows him to consume the drink without suffering from the effects of drinking literal radiation juice. How that layer of lead got there is unknown, but everyone suspects he was just really freaking stupid as a kid, and while other kids were snacking on crayons, he was straight up eating batteries. This could also explain the enormous amounts of energy it would take to double jump, though this theory is unconfirmed in the comics. However, this theory is also strongly supported, as Gabe Newell is quoted saying, "Scout ate batteries, lol." Well, that's all I have for everyone's favorite piece of cannon fodder. If this video does well, I'll be doing the Soldier next in a totally not bootlegging someone else's format method. Thank you very much for watching this fun writing experiment, and have a great rest of your day.